sometimes we have to pump the brakes, turn the water off, fix the piping, and then that's when you turn the floodgates on.
Welcome, everybody, to the Grow Rogue podcast. I'm Reade.
I'm Nikki. We're the Milners. Now, in today's episode, we're going to talk about, do you have a marketing problem or do you have a product problem in disguise? So a few things we'll touch on. What are real marketing problems? What are product problems? And what is the MVP and how do you achieve that? So let's get right to it. Okay, Reade. This is a very, very, very common thing that people come to us a lot. They have, we deal with a lot of small businesses. So a lot of people actually, one of our favorite questions to ask people is, have you sold anything? So why don't you launch right into it?
Yeah, it's a good prompt for a problem that we do deal with a lot. And if what I'm about to say resonates with you, then definitely you want to listen through to this entire episode. Here's the scenario, right? You have a great idea for a business, and maybe you've gotten some friends and family, some colleagues to agree that, yes, that is a great idea. Maybe they've even paid you for that, whether it's some sort of an informational product or you've got a prototype of some sort. And then what you decided to do after that was launch heavy into this build phase. And sometimes that build phase looks like a big investment in the product, let's say in a software as a service situation. I was just about to say,
this is for tangible products and service-based products.
Totally. So you've got, let's say you spend a lot of time and money on building this thing, right? Or on the other end, let's say it's an informational product or a service-based product. So you launch right into sales and marketing. Maybe you invest a lot of money in a website or a marketing strategy, but then you come up against this issue of, hey, we're doing all the things that we should be doing. The product is great or the marketing is great, but it's not selling. Then you have a question that you have to solve this problem. What's the problem, right? Before you can start to come up with a plan, you've got to figure out what the problem is. And what we see often is that both of those things that I just described might actually they might be done, or you might be doing them at a very high quality, right? The product might actually be really good.
Well, what I was going to say was, you do have to give it time.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people do get frustrated within 6 months if they pay for marketing services for us and they say, well, it's your fault. And we're saying, well, it's your fault. So what is the appropriate amount of time to actually wait to see, do we actually have a product problem or are we just waiting because you're not going to sell a first product in 6 months maybe?
Yeah, that is a really good question. And that is something that we start with, before we're able to really diagnose, we do need to ask that question. Like, well, why do you think it's not working? Well, we ran ads on Facebook for 2.5 weeks and nobody bought anything. That is not a viable experiment. You're not going to get a sample size that's large enough to be able to draw any discernible facts from that data. So you do want to give it a test period. And that does lead me into one thing I want to talk about, which is an MVP. That stands for minimum viable product. And that is often referred to in the context of tech, but that can be used in any business or product, right? If you have a service-based business that you are launching, an MVP might be the simplest possible delivery of that service. If you've got a product, say it is a physical product, you've got yourself a widget, then the MVP would be like the prototype that you crank out a few iterations of that. And the purpose of an MVP is to get out something at its simplest and frankly its cheapest,
to get the first dollar,
to get your first dollar, to get your first experiment, to get your first opportunity to get feedback from a customer base, a user base, and then you are to make iterative improvements to that product or service over time, rather than investing this mountain of time and money. We've had people come to us and they've spent 18 months or 2 years building this thing, and then they're like, well, it's just not quite ready to sell yet. And I've got bad news that you can do all of that, but you're still starting from the ground floor. You're still starting at baby step number 1, which is sell the thing, get some user feedback, and make
Because then
improvements.
at that point, it's easy. So I say easy, it's simple. Because if you get your target market and you niche yourself and you say, this product sells, then you put the dollars behind it and you've put a rocket ship on your back. So you're good. But a lot of people try to put that cart before the horse and they say, oh, I'll just spend. We've had a lot of people come to us wanting to give us a lot of money to do it faster. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is not correct. You cannot just you can, thousands and thousands of dollars at ads, but it's not going to work any faster because you're just going to get bots. You're going to get frustrated. They're not good leads. They're not good sales. So, which leads me to my next question. So you talked a little bit about the MVP. What are some actual marketing problems? One of them that comes to mind to me is consistency. It is why people hire us, because they might start really well and 2 months they do it every day and then it falls off and then there's a dip in sales. So to me, it's consistency is one a real problem of marketing. What's another one?
Well, before we move on to another one, I think that is probably the number one problem, or at least the most common problem that we see, is that businesses, that we speak with, they might tell us all the things they've done to try to build their brand and try to establish a marketing base and a foundation, or to sell their product, and it's just this laundry list of things that inside of a coordinated strategy, they're all good things, but done haphazardly and without a plan and without proper measurement in place, and for an inconsistent amount, or done inconsistently, it's worthless, right? Because even if you have success with that and you're just throwing a bunch of things against the wall, you don't really know what it was that got the needle to move. So the number one problem that we see, or the most common problem we see, is a lack of consistency and a lack of a coordinated plan. That's why so many times we recommend starting extremely simple. Throw up a landing page with a subscription to your newsletter, right? And then put out some consistent, start with monthly marketing content that is meant to educate and inform a specific audience, and let that be the first thing that you do, and prove to yourself while you're developing the product, while you're doing your sales, your prospecting, your networking, things like that. Prove to yourself that you can put out a monthly newsletter and that you can get people to sign up for that newsletter and say, yeah, that sounds interesting, I would like to get that, and then build from there. That's what we recommend to begin with.
That's great. Another one that comes to mind is target audience. This term gets thrown around a lot in a lot of different businesses. Find your target market. Find your target market. Well, it's harder than it sounds. It's not, because a lot of people, and we've dealt with this too with our individual clients. They make a service-based business on what they think they would like, how they interpret it. That is not always what your target market is. And I think it takes, it does. It takes a lot of research, but it takes also, we do a lot of beta testing with our clients of what will work, what doesn't work, what do they think, industry standards, things like that. So talk a little bit about target market and how to find it and how it's constantly changing.
Yeah, so I'm going to differentiate between two terms that are thrown around a lot, and it's important to understand that these are not necessarily the same thing. So we have, I hear the term target audience used a lot. This is our target audience. Our target audience is this. Our target audience is that, or our target market is this. But there are ideal customer profiles or ideal buyer profiles, which
Also called buyer persona.
buyer personas, right? So these are the types of individuals that purchase from you, that make buying decisions. We also hear them called key decision makers, KDMs. These are people that sign the checks. That is not necessarily your target audience. And so let me differentiate, and then I'll give an example. So to differentiate the target audience or the audience that you're looking for, this has to do with those who resonate with your marketing content, those who get benefit from your content. Those are not necessarily the same people that sign the checks, but those people may be the most instrumental and influential voices in the room, making that recommendation to that person that signs the checks. Also, that person may not be in a position to sign the checks yet, but by having them and speaking to them and collecting them into your audience, you put yourself in a really good position to be able to get them to sign that check when they're able. So a good example of this might be, let's say, for example, you're a business consultant, or you're a wealth manager, and your ideal customer profile is a wealthy business owner who has $5 million business or $100 million business. Name your number there. And you come up with all these other things. They're college educated. They're between 45 and 55 years old, all this kind of stuff. That's the person that buys from you. But in all likelihood, that individual is not getting on the internet and searching for solutions to the problems that their company is solving. At that size, they've delegated that job, maybe even down to an administrative assistant. Now, that administrative assistant's probably dealing with a lot of different problems, or that maybe even a head of a department, if we go kind of high and low there. They are constantly finding different ways to solve the problems that they themselves and their company is dealing with. They are a better target audience for you to absorb into your audience and absorb into your network, so that you can put yourself in a really good position to be able to be the number one recommendation that they make to their boss or their executive, who is actually your ideal customer profile. So that's a good way to think about the difference between your target audience and your ideal customer profile.
That's good. Are there any other marketing problems that?
So this is where you started the conversation when we talk about product. So go ahead. Yeah, introduce that.
Before we go on to product, I was going to say, for marketing problems, a lot of people come to us, and we deal with some really smart businessmen and women, doing very well for themselves. But they'll come to us, and on a kickoff call, they'll just say, I just want to see data. I just want to see the data. I want to make data-driven decisions. That's 100% correct. But one thing that we like to say, and we like to educate people, is the data means nothing the first couple times. And a side note, we just went to BritCon with our sons, and there were YouTuber. They were doing a panel, and one of the they have millions of subscribers, and they're like 24. That those kids. But one of the first thing he said was, you don't need to worry about the algorithm. They do. They 100% do. But if I'm starting, or you're starting, or anybody's starting, like you just don't worry about the algorithm right now. That's kind of how we feel about data. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, there's no doubt that, and this goes back to our.
Wait, let me say, I do care about data, and I'm very data driven, but you have to understand how to use it, how to read it, and when it actually matters. Sorry, I had to say that.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, because the truth is that the data doesn't matter until it does. And what I mean by that is that for your first, let's say you're starting a brand new marketing campaign or marketing strategy, you've never really put out content before. Maybe your business is well established, maybe it's brand new, but you don't have a consistent track record of putting out marketing content. Your first 6 weeks to 6 months of data is completely it's completely useless because
It's a good baseline.
it's established. That's all it's useful for. Thank you for correcting that, because it's useful for establishing a baseline. You can look at the data from day one to 6 months, and you can say, okay, we started with 12 subscribers because we texted our buddies, or we started emailing our list of people that had not heard from us in years. And these were the open rates. This was the response on social media. That is not to say you should look at that and you should determine that campaign or that strategy is successful or not. That is merely your foundation from which you should build. So that's when the data starts mattering. It only matters when you're looking at, am I doing better than the last month or the last quarter? That's great. Yeah, that's good. So it's funny. I use analogies a lot of like sports and fitness. And if I were to, if you were to go into the gym and you're 100 pounds overweight and you were to go to the gym for, say, 6 weeks in a row, and you say, well, I haven't lost 100 pounds. I don't have six-pack abs yet. So working out must not work. Obviously, that would be really poor decision-making, right? That would not make a lot of sense.
Your big brain knows that.
Your big brain knows that. But your small brain is dumb. Your big brain is smart. Your big brain would tell you that obviously we just got to stick with this for a lot longer and continue to build on the results that we have. And business is very similar.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so now let's talk about more product problems. When do you throw your hands up? When do you say, you know what? I have given it my all for a year, 6 months. What is the time? I want to know the time in which you think, and we deal with this a lot. We have to go to our clients sometimes and say, I think we need to change the product. And it's a hard conversation because that's their blood, sweat, and tears. So the time, let's talk about time, and let's talk about when to change and how to be fluid. And I think this is also another very important conversation to have as an entrepreneur of, don't be so set in your ways.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn the hard way of like, okay, the writing is on the wall. When do we change?
So I'm going to give a long rambling answer because unfortunately there's no set time to say like, okay, 180 days and you should know. I do like to tell people that, number one, if you're launching a new business or if you're launching a new brand or a brand new product to a market that you have not done this before, for the next 18 to 24 months before I'm going to be able to determine whether or not that this is a real thing, or before this has viability.
And there are different variables that go into it, because we do have certain clients that they didn't rebrand, but they piggybacked off a brand to start another brand. And you do have a little head start.
Mm-hmm.
So there is many different variables that go in that. But tell them what we look for as lead strategists. What do you look for? Excuse me, when it's been 8 months and marketing has been consistent, and we would stop it before 8 months. But what are we looking for? What are our key indicators that say, no, okay, sorry, I just rambled, but there's that one example of the deliverability rate on an email is fantastic. Click-through rate is fantastic. But nobody sold or nothing sold.
Yeah. Okay. So I get the question you're asking. And so this is where we talk about we show funnels. So these marketing funnels all the time. You have kind of your top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. And then when a visitor or prospect comes out the bottom of the funnel, that's when they become a customer. So you look at where in the funnel there is a leak or they're hitting a brick wall. Look, if you're putting out content for 6 or 8 months, and again, you're right. When Nikki's right, with our clients, we're gonna make adjustments far sooner than 6 months. But let's say you're doing this on your own, or you've got a team that's implementing this for you, and you're putting out content consistently, weekly basis, daily social media, monthly email at least, for 6 or 8 months. And let's say, for example, you're getting really good top of the funnel traction, meaning people are reacting. You're getting, more impressions and more reach on social, and you're getting, email subscribers because people are joining that email list because they like what you have to say. But then they're not moving further into the purchase stage,
What
right?
everyone wants to hear is the word converted.
Right. They're not converting from leads, which we'd call a subscriber, a lead. They're not converting into a customer. So I would look at that part of the funnel. I would say, look, it seems like things are fine at the top of the funnel. Seems like things are okay at the middle of the funnel because let's say your open rates are good and people are reading your emails and they're engaging with your content, but they're not purchasing. That takes me to the bottom of the funnel. So I'm going to look at things like, well, what's the experience like when they get to that product page or that book a call page? If you're a service-based business, is that landing page compelling enough to get somebody to then give you their information in exchange for that time that you're asking of them or a demo, whatever that is? If the problem is somewhere else, let's say you're getting a lot of traction on social media, but nobody's converting into newsletter subscribers or they're not getting on your email list, well, then let's talk about the offer that you're putting out in order to get them to subscribe. Do you have a lead magnet? Do you have something that's really valuable, that's totally free, that you're giving them in exchange for their email address? If you do, is it any good? Is the landing page for that compelling enough? Are you putting out enough calls to action in your social media content to say, hey, if you like what I've been saying on LinkedIn or Twitter, you'd love this thing, right? So we go where the leak is, or in some cases, the brick wall. We go where the problem is. And I think you're going to want to speak on this before I do, but just to set this up, we keep teasing this idea of the product problem. What if all those things look really good? We're getting people to the buy now page or the book a call page, and maybe they're going through the demo, maybe they're actually scheduling a call, but they're not purchasing. That is when we start to have a much more holistic conversation about, is this product truly fit for this audience? Does this audience actually want to pay money for this product?
And that's where competitors come in. It's very good to look at competitors, and we do it all the time with our clients. Because if they're selling similar products and services to us, then yes, we look at that too. But I was just imagining when you said funnels, of like channels, that sometimes we have to pump the brakes, turn the water off, fix the piping, and then that's when you turn the floodgates on, and that's when you start running ads, because a lot of people will come and want to start running ads first, and we just don't like doing that. We don't like doing that, especially if they haven't sold anything, because we have no idea. It would, what do we say, like throw spaghetti at a wall? Like, we're not wasting people's money. We like to figure it out. Then once all those pipes are fixed, then we turn on the floodgates, and then that's when it works beautifully, and that's when it can consistently run, and then you just make tweaks. But the build phase, it can be long. It can.
Yeah, and I can give an example. I mean, we've had a client now for going on 11 years. In fact, they were a client before I officially incorporated the business, and they're still a client. Beyond the initial work that we did for them, which was building a new brand, and I built them a website and all those kinds of things. It was really slow going at a certain point to build some traction because they were a brand new business. And it probably took 18 months to do a ton of little testing here and there with content. And at the time, SEO was still really big, and social, and Google was trying to figure out what their involvement in social media was going to be at the time. But when we hit that true product market fit, and we had figured out how to drive traffic, convert that traffic into leads, and then convert those leads into new customers, then it just became, well, how many new customers do you want? Right? Because it cost X to get traffic, it cost Y to get a lead, and it cost Z to get a customer. So we said, okay, well, the budget is going to be, A dollars, and we want to purchase this many new customers over this period of time. So then you really just rinse and repeat, and you're always tweaking, you're always improving. But you can only get to that magical place once you've done the necessary work to figure out those metrics that I just described. And that takes time. That takes a lot of experimentation and patience.
Yeah, this is all really good. Is there anything else you want to say about, is it a marketing problem or is it a product problem?
So this is, I think this will put a cap to this. Okay, so I'm going to throw some Georgia farming language at you. Sometimes you have to know when to shoot the lame horse. And we've had to be a part of a lot of these conversations over the years with clients.
But you build
and
that
friends.
It's not always bad.
It's almost always the beginning of something much better. And we're not talking about shutting down the business, right? We're talking about saying that particular product, it doesn't work. We've done everything we can do, and the results up into the point of purchase and even after purchase, right? Because what we'll do sometimes is we'll experiment with a large free user base. And if the data from that, if the feedback is coming back that it's just not worth the cost that you're asking, then you got one or two problems. You either got to lower your cost pretty dramatically, or you got to decide we have to start over with a new product, or we have to kill this product. And that is a difficult thing to do. It's a really difficult thing for us to advise, because in a lot of cases, we know what that means for us, right? If there's no product for us to market, sometimes that means that our job is done.
Change the
Or if they've got
to,
if they've got to go back to the drawing board, we understand, and that's our fiduciary responsibility to make that best, to give that best advice to a client, even if it means the end of our relationship, at least for a time, to say, this product is just not it.
So many clients come to us and they're like, we've spent money on an app and we did this LMS, and it's like, why'd you start with that? Like, I feel like they're flipping it upside down, and they're starting really big, and they're saying, oh, we'll do the posting and the little stuff later.
Oh.
It's like, no, flip it upside down. Start really small. Start feeling around, like, what does this person feel about this? And if you already have something that you sell, then that's fine, but you still have to find out where it fits. And you might not need all the ads, and you might not need all the landing pages and the LMS, and especially not an app and things like that. So just a lot of wasted money, because I feel like it's a very saturated culture out there on the internet saying, well, you have to have an LMS, you have to write a book, and if you're going to do anything, you have to do this, this, and this. And it's a lot of wasted money, when really they could have just started small and gotten those things still. Like, writing a book is great, but not the first thing you do.
Yeah, I think it would be good for us to offer a summary of, this is what I would do to avoid that having to shoot the lame horse scenario. So let's start by saying this, that if you're rolling out a new product or a new service or a new business, start with an MVP, start with a minimum viable product. And that should be the simplest and the cheapest way that you can deliver a product or service to an audience. Step 2, find someone who's willing to pay you for that. If you have to give it away for free in the beginning, do that. But find some people that see enough value in it to pay you for it. Get as much feedback from them as possible. Take them to lunch, give them a gift card, whatever it is you have to do to get as much feedback about the product or service as possible. The next step 3, build a minimum viable funnel, a minimum viable marketing strategy. I would start with social media, put out some free and helpful content. Make sure that you've got an email list that you can gather contact information and continually drip to them. That would be step 4, is continually talk to your clients via email. Easiest way to do that is a newsletter. Then you get into step 5, 6, 7, and beyond, which is, now let's reiterate. Yeah.
So once you hit that, then you go on.
Yes. If you've done those,
fighting the boss, like, you can't fight the boss first, and
you're gamifying this. Yeah, you're leveling up. Thanks for aging us, babe. Talking about Sega. you're leveling up at each point, and you can't move on until you've beaten that one level. Otherwise, you're getting in way above your head, and you're gonna get frustrated, and you're gonna throw the controller at the wall, right? So those would be the 4 or 5 steps that I would go through if I'm launching a new product, a new business, or perhaps relaunching into a new market.
You forwarded me something the other day. Uber.
Uber has an advertising arm of their business. Most people don't know this, but if you're on the app and if you're in the cars, I guess, there are targeted advertisements that are placed to those users. Well, evidently, that is a $680 million business for Uber. And the intake form for interested advertisers is a Google form.
Nothing fancy.
Google Form is a free tool offered by Google, and it's not fancy, and it just says, fill this out if you're interested in advertising with Google. And they do $680 million in ads. I bet you they won't start advertising that service publicly and in a really public way until they get to $1 billion in revenue.
I think when people say you have to spend money to make money, we're believers of that. I 100% do. But I do think people take it to heart a little too much. They say, well, I have to get the nicest of everything in order to sell my product. But in that example, I mean, my goodness, that they're using stuff we use, and we are nowhere near that valuation. So it is, people take that to heart. And I'm telling you, we are here. We have worked with millions of dollars of business, and like we do not have to use the most expensive, and quite frankly, like, you should try to be cheap. Like, you should try your best to be cheap.
Yeah, so that old maxim of you got to spend money to make money is true, but it's not a direct relationship, right? I would say you got to spend something to make something, and then you do have to spend more to make more. But just to say that, like, hey, if I throw hundreds of thousands of dollars at this problem, well, then it's just gonna
be a bigger problem.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're gonna grow it faster in spite of its problems and its flaws,
I'm
right?
telling you, business
It's not gonna
is
happen.
like video games. It really, you cannot, I guess you can have cheat codes. I mean, yeah. I guess
cheat codes in this life. Yeah.
No, but you really cannot hit certain milestones until you've reached others.
Yeah, that's good. I would say before we end, Nick, I think it'd be fun to just have, like, let's talk a little bit of, like, catch up on the business and on life. So for those interested, if you want to check out at this point, we're done with the business advice, but we're going to talk about some real world business experience. I know that's really valuable to me. So I would like to share these things as we do this podcast, because I think it would be a fun thing, if only for us to look back on and see us how we've documented. So at the time of this recording, we're about halfway through Q1 of 2024, which is wild because I feel like we just kind of got the kids back in school and we got done with the holidays.
I've been sick for 30 days.
Right. Yeah, it's been sick season. And so, man, if I could talk about that, right, or if we could write a book on that of, okay, so we have 2 kids playing sports, multiple sports at the moment. Everyone's sick, right? It's cold season. It's literally cold.
There's a holiday every week.
The kids are out of school for something every week. But there's this business that has to be fed, and clients that require work getting done. And so, Nick, what do we do? What have we been doing to kind of keep the wheels from falling off during all this?
Well, I definitely like January. January is a time of reflection. I know how cliche that sounds, but it's true. And it's when I kind of look at everything and say, like, how do I really, really want this year to be? And I will say, I have taken the red pill, and I know that time is speeding up the older I get, because these years, they seem so short. I mean, 12 months. And if you break it down, I mean, it's insane. It's in 30-day chunks, 31-day chunks. It's insane to me. And this year, Reade and I really talked about the things we really, we got the big ass calendar, Jesse Isler.
Yeah.
And we tried to, we've gotten 6 months. We did that in December. I'm very proud of ourselves. But we're really trying to look at the whole year as a whole. But we did kind of have this come to Jesus, well, at least I did, thought of the amount of time and energy I'm putting in this. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, it's like you have a third child." And I was like, "That is 100% correct. That the time and energy we spend on this business, and I enjoy it. I enjoy every day of it. But it really does. It was shocking to see. It's tax season and all this, and we really have to be really careful almost and diligent on where we're putting our time, because I do sometimes I'm so exhausted by the time we go home, and we are trying to build a legacy. We're not just trying to work a 9 to 5. That this is just what Reade and I have discussed and we want, but sometimes I struggle with boundaries, and sometimes this is all I think about, all I do, because it's we're constantly building, and it's just, if I can change one thing this year, it really is, we are trying to find those cheat codes I was saying earlier. Now I'm kidding, but of really being diligent. When we're at work, we work. When we're at home, we're with our family. When we're at dinner and it's not a business meeting, we're on a date. I am trying to get a lot better at being very focused. And I'm a very focused person. So I don't mean it like focusing on like what I'm actually doing, but it can't continue to go this way. I told Reade the other day, I can't work harder. I got to figure out how to work smarter. And we're still learning how to do that. And I'll be the first to admit, let me humble myself real quick. Like, I could work smarter. And we're still learning to do that.
Well, okay. So let's take this concept of, when we're talking about the MVP, we're beyond the stage of an MVP. This is year 10 of the business since we officially incorporated. I think August or September will be when we hit our 10-year anniversary in this business, as owning this business. But all along the way, and when you own a business, when you're entrepreneurs, especially when you're a married couple who's an entrepreneur or who are entrepreneurs, every season, every year, it's this iterative approach. We've grown every year for 10 years. We don't necessarily, and this is interesting, we don't necessarily have a lot more clients than we had, say, 5 years ago. In fact, I think we might have fewer clients than we did we've had more clients. But the work that we're doing for them is of a much higher level. We're trusted with much larger budgets for clients. And so I don't want to say the
quality of work has changed a lot.
Yeah, and thus the pressure to produce at a higher and higher level has been there, and it's increasing. And so, to Nikki's point, you can't just do more. You can't just do more. You can't just work harder, right? So we've had to build out, really smart systems. Nikki has been spearheading that for the last 3 years of making sure our systems and our processes are solid so that we can deliver good quality work, and that she and I can be in kind of our zone of genius, right? Where I can be doing what I'm good at, she can do what she's good at. And our team that works with us are doing the things that they need to be doing. And so that's been this part of this iterative approach that we've taken over all these years, and we're going to continue to do that. And that's why we continue to produce better and better results for our clients, and they keep coming back and they keep referring business to us. And
so stay tuned to how we are, because
yeah, we'll keep updating on this kind of thing. But I just thought it'd be fun to do a quick update on life in the business. You're now looking at the head coach and the team mom for a 6U baseball team, and the assistant coach and the assistant team mom for an 8U baseball team. We just wrapped up our season of being basketball coaches. And so this is a really fun time of life. This is a really fun experience. And
we just like challenging things.
We just
what we do. We take the road less traveled. That is us.
Yeah. And the road much more tired. So that'd be a good.
This was good.
This is fun. Yeah, this is a good way to sign off. So if you guys stuck around this far and you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe. We're mostly here on YouTube, but also jump on our newsletter, where it's the Grow Rogue newsletter. And if you want to reach out to us, if you want us to talk with you about your business, whether you're a $680 million business that we certainly have experience working with businesses that are multinational and international, or if you are a startup with just a little bit of revenue and a big dream, we'd love to talk to you. So go to growrogue.co and schedule a call with us. Until next time, thank you for watching the Grow Rogue podcast.
Bye.